Welcome, everybody, to Hearts and Stars podcast. I'm Jonathan Babicka, your host and CEO of the Little Lighthouse Foundation. Today, we have the brilliant Kobi Karp, founder of Kobi Karp Architecture and Interior Design. And Kobi, I am so honored to have you on the Hearts and Stars podcast. Thank you for coming in.
Jonathan, you know I love you very, very much. You are the reason I'm here. And I was actually forced to be here by DJ Irie. And Irie is one of my dear friends and one of my heroes, as you know. So it's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Irie he forced you. He is a force.
He
by
is
nature.
a force. That's right. That's right.
So,
very true.
Kobi, as we started creating this Hearts and Stars podcast, I used you as a model as I was painting the picture to the Little Lighthouse Foundation staff, board of directors, co-founders. And I said, can we just imagine what we could do to this underserved community by giving them access to these brilliant professionals, masters of their realm? Like, imagine if we had Kobi Karp, and he's talking about architecture, but he broke it down in such a way that it was like palatable to any age, any student of any age, any adult interested in seeing what is that pathway that Kobi Karp took to get him to where he is now. And I want to break that down with you. I call it extracting these juices from Kobi. How did you get to where you are? And of course, what you're doing right now, because I also want to see kind of like what you're doing on a day-to-day and what your team is doing, what Nancy, which may or may not be the brains of the operation.
By far she is.
So I know the move, and I'd love to hear, more about kind of like your passions as you were growing up, because I think that's something that can really resonate with students or anybody kind of following your passion, because I can only imagine you came from Israel to Minneapolis to go to school for architecture. But tell me about that pathway. Let's navigate that and tell me kind of like any challenges along the way. What were your passions along the way to get you to Miami?
So it's interesting because life is evolutionary, and I think you hit the nail on the head, the brains behind it all. And the proof is in the pudding. If you meet my sons, Aiden and Jordan, you will see the brain power that is packed, and that when people meet me, they say, oh, where is that hiding? The reality is life is very interesting. Life is evolutionary. What I mean by that is that when I was born in Israel, and I grew up in Israel until I was 12 years old, in very much a very low-key community. To take you back, I did not see TV until I was 10 years old. I did not see a color TV until I came to the United States of America. And this kind of life, which is outside life, where as a kid you play outside, you hang out with your friends, and your bicycle is your mode of transportation. So when I grew up in Israel, for example, I love riding bicycles, and one of my MO to make pocket change, to get money, was to ride my bicycle and deliver flowers. So during holidays in Israel, it is customary to bring flowers to the family. And there was a flower shop kilometer away from my home, and I would ride bicycle there, and I would deliver flowers, which then, interesting, allowed me to be part of the community and the city and see what urban fabric is about. You didn't know that. It just happens. It's just evolutionary. You become aware of your environment. Oh, I need to turn right here. Oh, I can put my bicycle here and nobody's going to steal it while I run upstairs and deliver the flowers at this house, at this apartment, at this hotel. And as life goes by, I remember certain times. One time I delivered flowers to an American family in a hotel. And I came to the door and knocked on the door at the hotel, and a woman answered the door, and obviously she's very American. I spoke no English. And I gave her the flowers, and she gave me $5 bill, which was like, you remember that
money
for big
back
money.
then.
And it was also, green money, which is different than your money, and it has a picture on it
Right.
of an individual, which later on you get to know who the people are on the money. And that is the steps of life that take you through to where it is that eventually you feel by nature you evolutionize to become. There was no preconceived ideas or notions. Growing up in Israel, I was good at drawing. I was good at sketching. I would draw beautiful drawings of parrots and animals in color pencil. And what is interesting is that when I came to the United States of America, we moved to Minneapolis, Minnesota. I went to school at 6th grade, junior high, high school. And one of my teachers was a drafting teacher. And he saw how I would draft. And he said to me, back then, the teacher, that I should entertain studying drafting and becoming like a draftsperson, whether it's for an air conditioning company or it's to make signs and logos or to draw the equipment that you have here, to just be a draftsperson. And that evolutionized into learning more about how to draw things in 3 dimension, in perspective, and how you see life. I am naturally not very good in English. Why? Because I was not born here. So English is not my mother tongue. Yet, as I evolutionized in Minneapolis, and it was good for me to grow up in Minneapolis because it's the Midwest, it's very American, and it allowed me to capture and understand how it is that I can be in the American environment. And this teacher, interesting enough, taught me how to draw, how to draft in 3D. And that helped me as I then applied to schools when I was graduating high school. I applied to, we didn't have much money, so I applied to the state school. I did not know the difference between a state school and a private school or anything like that. I did not know about Harvard or Yale or anything like that. I just applied to the University of Minnesota. And I was accepted to the university, which was a big deal, College of Liberal Arts, that within it is the Institute of Technology at the University of Minnesota. And I took the easiest degree that I could get into, which was environmental design. And environmental design, especially when I was 18, 19, 20, was a little bit different than it is now. Environmental design back then was how it is that you can create energy-efficient homes and protect you from the cold elements, insulation, and buffers from the outdoor environment. And that was interesting. Why? Because for me, it enlightened me how buildings are made, how buildings are built, how a tree is placed on a site and give you shade. And at the same time, how you can hang a swing set from it and use it for entertainment and use it for quality of life. How it is that you would then have a garden and grow herbs in the summertime. And it makes you part of the natural environment. More so, as I grew up, I also applied in the university to the School of Architecture, and I was accepted to go for pre-arch, which is architecture school. And that brought me in to a completely different thought process. Now, I could not get a job in an architect's office, but I could get jobs working in, for example, when I was in high school, I would work at Target. Target, it was a local store that just started out. I work in T2, which is Target number 2 in Knollwood. And my job that I was able to get was temp. And the manager of the aisle across from Toys was what we call back then, it was cameras and records. Because people would buy film, 35 millimeter. That's how the company would make money, and they would sell records, 33. And the lady said, hey, you look like a hard worker. When you finish working during the Christmas shift, why don't you come and work for us in cameras and records after school during holidays? And I took that job. And that led me to really be understanding of the creative part of music, entertainment, cassettes, the creative art on it. At that time, if you think about it, Pink Floyd came out and AC/DC and those kind of bands, right? And it was country, right? And I was able to be part of that. And that helps creative juices in your mind. And again, Nothing. It's evolutionary and transformative. It's like working out, and you build a muscle. You're building your creativity and what you're looking at without having any specific direction.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that for me specifically, that was very helpful
Mm-hmm.
because it helped me see the world. It helped me see the reality of life, of work, in a more creative fashion, arts and crafts and music and drafting. And it tied me to look at and appreciate, whether it's arts and crafts or music, or even go to the Walker Art Center that we have in Minneapolis, which has art and it has music and stage. And those kind of things I liked, but I mostly looked at the building. I looked at the structure. Yet I could not get a job. Architects, especially back then, was a very low-paying job. Everybody told me, don't become an architect. You should become a doctor or a lawyer, stockbroker. You will never make much money as an architect. When I was accepted to School of Architecture and I started to study architecture, and I could not get a job as an architect, I worked in hotels. I was a front desk reception, the midnight shift, and the reception in a hotel in Howard Johnson in Hopkins, and then I got a job in the Sheraton in St. Louis Park. And those kind of jobs allowed me not only interaction with different people, but allowed me to understand how it is that a restaurant or a hotel works from the back end, from the engine, from the motor, which is so much more important than just as an architect would they teach you the facade. Mm-hmm. Yes, the facade is important. It's the way you look and the way I look. On the inside, our parts, God willing, are in the right place. The heart, the lungs, the kidneys, and they're all in the right place. And the bodies of everybody are all in the right place, hopefully. And that's what buildings are about. It's putting the components in the right place so it's efficient and you can operate your restaurant. You can operate the hotel. I could not get a job in an architect's office until one day I got lucky because my cousin was building a house. And the architect needed somebody to build little cardboard models. And so they give you an X-Acto knife and you would build a little cardboard model. Because back then we did not have computers with 3Ds, and I was good at that. So that led me to work in an architect's office, and when they didn't have enough models to build, I would go and sweep the snow with a shovel out of the buildings which are under construction. I would meet the contractors to the point where I was sitting in class studying calculus, and the project manager would show up, in January in my class and say, "Can I talk to Kobi?" Yes. We don't know where the sewer connection is for the house. And now with the snow on it, we can't find it. Do you remember where it is? And I would remember and recall where it is, and they would go dig it out, and they would be happy. And those are the kind of things that allowed me indirectly to become a more holistic, a more wholesome individual and an architect eventually. My professor was Leonard Parker, who was quite good. And one day shows up a guy, and tall, skinny, with a bow tie and a seersucker suit. He says, "I need a draftsperson in my office." And Leonard Parker says, "You should take Kobi Karp. He's one of my good guys." Mm-hmm. And really, I was one of the few on Friday at 5 o'clock in the afternoon in the studio.
Right place, right time.
Yeah, and so John Cunningham was his name, and I was employee number 9, and he hired me for like $18,000 a year to work in his company. They are known for, what's the name of that restaurant? Rainforest Cafe. They created Rainforest Cafe, and they created clubs and restaurants. So we did a lot of work together, churches. I was good. I wasn't the best. I was never the smartest. But I was good in math. I received some smart advice from smart people. And that's the key. I think if you talk to people, they give you thoughts, and they're not cooked, but they give you an idea or a notion that you should sleep on and you should think about.
I love the confidence and the passion, and I can see that in you. I want to break this down a little bit because
Please.
There's just so much here. And honestly, I hate to interrupt you.
Anytime.
I could let you.
No.
I could let you
Always
just keep
interrupt.
going. Because as I told you, the first.
I need direction. You saw.
Well, I think this is like a great opportunity just to kind of like break things down, because soon we're going to get into the move to Miami and how Kobi Karp became Kobi Karp. When you're explaining your childhood in Israel, the one key term, urban fabric, I love that. This is how I picture it, and this is how I see things, because I'm trying to see things through the eyes of a child, but also me. I have like this inner child in me that kind of like wants to learn all the time, and maybe sometimes, in full disclosure, I don't pick it up immediately. It's one of those things I need repetition. So this is me kind of like trying to really get everything out of, what I believe were these steps that like somebody, in somebody that's young can take to kind of get where you are. I think the exploration process is so important. Number one, you took initiative, right? I think being in the outside world is huge, right? You're connected with nature.
It's critical. Being in the outside natural environment is critical. I'll give you a few examples, right? Because when I grew up in Israel, it was a bit more agrarian rather than a commercial center, right? It was a city being built. They were building a country. But I lived in an area which is the district where they grow oranges. The Kobi of 62 is not the Kobi of 26. And I think that every individual, if I can give suggestions to people, is get engaged with the natural environment. If you like dogs and cats, go pet them. There's a lot to be said about being with animals, right? Whether they're domestic or wild, right? When I lived in Alaska, I enjoyed being close to the bears, and I enjoyed seeing the elk in Minnesota, and I enjoyed seeing the deer. I enjoyed being out in the environment, and even here in Florida, right? I'll just give you examples. I love being outside and seeing the iguanas. I love seeing the hawks. I love seeing the seagulls. I love being fishing. I don't believe in hunting. I don't like to kill animals. And when I would go hunting with my buddies in Minnesota, I would shoot at the branches because I was a good shooter. I can disconnect the branches off a tree. But it is important, I think, as an individual to get out. Back then, we did not have computers, but we had TVs, right? So we grew up with TVs. And there's always a show on TV. We didn't have so many TV stations. We only had ABC, NBC, and CBS. But those three stations can tie you up for a long time. And so what I learned about myself specifically is that what I did enjoy being with people. And the minute I was able to be more with people, different people, not necessarily my family only, but people from the community who are different than me, and people who would show me different ways of life and different foods and different thought processes, makes you grow. And I think that to become a more holistic individual in whatever you do, architect or not, is that you need to be able to understand people. The move to Miami was an interesting move. So I lost my roommate in Baltimore, Maryland, and so my parents, who lived in Fort Lauderdale, sent me. Back then they would get a Miami Herald, and they wanted me to get a job. So they went out of their way to buy Miami Herald on Sundays, cut out the want-ads, and send me the architects. And there was one architect job that was in Miami Beach, and I called them up on Monday, and they said, yes, send us your resume. And they were British. They were English from Sheffield, and they were in Miami Beach, 1987, 88. It was beginning of 88. They met me on a Saturday, and we had an 8-hour interview. I walk in with a blue jacket and a white shirt and a blue tie, khaki pants. And they're sitting in an office on Lincoln Road, 925 Lincoln Road's where the Books and Books used to be. And they're sitting there smoking cigarettes and Marlboro Reds with their legs up on the table, and they have the Reebok shoes, right? And the polo with the collar pulled up. And they're working in the Caribbean. They're working in the British West Indies. It was Lane Pettigrew and Simon Wood, and they interviewed me. And they offered me $30,000, right? So to give you perspective, I was being offered 19, 20, 21. Right. These guys offered me 30 if I come here in 30 days and start to work. I came and I said, I'll join you guys. And I joined them, and we did a lot. We did hotels in Jamaica, and we did Club Meds. You know, we did all these hotels. We did a lot. When I came, people said, Kobi, we do not wish to replicate what was previously built. we wish to have a new modern architecture next to the old one, so they can see where the old one stops and where the new one starts. It's like me building upon you and knowing your history, where you came from, and it will tell you also where you're going, because it will give us a foundation to where it is that we can be in the future. And then we can see also that we're not so great. Because when you're in your teens and 20s, you think, oh, I'm unstoppable, I'm unbreakable. Not so fast. And then when you get to the 30s and 40s and you start to think about other things in your life, you see that people were there before you. They walked these steps before you, and they were smarter than you, and they were stronger than you, and they built more than you. And I gave you the example of previous architects who came before me, whether it was Frank Lloyd Wright or Corbusier, whether it was Carlos Scarpa or Michelangelo. You walk into those steps and you say, wow, those are big shoes to fill. And you're saying, oh, Kobi has done a lot. No, Kobi hasn't done that much in the true perspective. In the reality of life, we as architects are transient in time. Frank Lloyd Wright was a great architect. You might have known the name, you might not have known the name, but there was no continuity. It's not a multi-generation. When Michelangelo passed away, there was no continuity. It's a personal event. And that is really something that makes it special, right? Morris Lapidus, when I came here, I met Morris. It was great. And Morris Lapidus did a lot of unique things. Fontainebleau, Eden Rock, Lincoln Road. I worked with him on Seacoast Towers. And you get to understand the thought process. And you get to understand the individual. And everybody has their own foundation. And my observation is that every person is different. Every individual has a different path to plow through. And it's interesting because if you come to my office and you meet the people, everybody's different. No two people are the same. I have two boys. They're completely different. Do they get along? Hopefully, yes. Do they love each other? Hopefully, yes. But they're completely different. You're different than your brother and or your sister, and you're different, and that's what makes life better. Because to improve the architecture and the design, you have to peel it back. Why did you do it this way? Why didn't you do it this way? Did you think about it this way? So when you come to the public hearings or to the presentations, whether it's to the clients or to the boards, and they say, oh, I like it, right? Sometimes they like it immediately, and sometimes they don't like it immediately, and you need to explain, how did you get to where you are today? And it's so critical and important to have a clear thinking with no preconceived ideas and notions, to have a reason to why it is where you are. And by the way, it's not just architecture, it's sports. If you know where the football will be in 2 seconds, and you can get to that point, you're going to score the touchdown. It's a third, sixth, fourth, fifth sense that a certain individual can get if they have a full understanding of the full field. And if by growing up and understanding how to draft, understanding records and music and tapes, understanding a little color and watercolor, wait, I worked in the landscaping. I know what the gardener is going through right now. I know what he's feeling. I know how he's cutting the grass and his auto mower is not working right now. I know what it's like, right? So you have a sense of connectivity in a thought process. And it's always different. Everybody's different each and every day, just like the weather is. But the continuous improvement of you as an individual, of the Kobi Karp of today, and I'm 62. Hopefully I will live a few more years. But the Kobi of 62 is not the same as 52. It's not the same as 42. And God willing, it will not be the same as 72, 82, or 92 if I can live that long and have that kind of quality of life. I drive every day to work. There's a woman who walks up and down the street. I did not know her age. I knew her husband. He passed away. I did a project for him. It's still the tallest building in Miami, called Panorama Tower. And he built it. And his name was Ted Hollow. And she walks every morning, exercise in the morning. And he passed away just recently. He was in his mid-90s. She is 87 years old. And her quality of life is phenomenal. Physically, mentally, agility. If you do what you like and you enjoy it, you will feel better about it inside. And you don't have to be an architect or a doctor or a lawyer. When I lived in St. Lucia, between the pitons. We built a jealousy plantation. It was an old jealousy plantation. It's a UNESCO site. We added to it a hotel, which is still in existence outside Soufriere in St. Lucia. It's one of the best hotels we've ever done. And we lived in Soufriere in an old colonial house, which was beautifully painted in light pink and blue. And the windows are open and cross-ventilated. And back then we had fax, thermal fax paper and Federal Express. That was our means of communications. And at night, you're hungry if you work all day. There was a fishmonger, a fisherman. He was my age. So I was like 26. And the fishmonger under the almond tree would go every day in his wooden boat, catch fish. And you know I liked snapper, right? And he would bring back the snapper and he would sell it to me. And I would buy it. And then, because I was by myself, he would also have one of his sisters. They have a fire pit outside. They would grill it and they would give it to you with coconut oil, nice, fresh, salt. And he would talk to me. And he would say, do you have a curry beer? You know, that's a local St. Lucian beer we would drink. And he said to me, I don't understand you guys. He was talking about, he said, I don't understand you white people. I said, why not? He says, look, you work hard all your life. You've been studying. And he was a smart fishmonger, extremely bright. He was much brighter than I ever will be. And he says to me, you're going to work, you're going to get married, you're going to have mortgages and insurance to pay. And then one day you'll make some money. And if you're lucky enough, you'll see those people on the boat there, they came here. And you'll come in here and you'll say, you'll enjoy the quality of life here and stay in the hotel that you're building here. Well, me, I'm the fishmonger. Every day I have a good life. I have a good quality of life. And I don't need much. And that is the essence of civilization. Because if you're happy with what you do and you're good at it, the fishmonger was a phenomenal fisherman,
Mm-hmm.
and he can provide it for you, you can go around the world. So I got older, I got married. There's an individual from Sunny Isles named Dezer, says to me, Gil Dezer, Michael Dezer, Gil's father, says,
Yes.
Kobi, I need to go to St. Lucia to look at a piece of property. I said, okay. And then he says, can you come with me? I said, of course. So we get on this private jet and we go to St. Lucia. We land in the main airport here, Wanora. And the people who were there work now. They knew me when I was 25, 26, 27. Now they're around the airport. Hey, Kobi Karp, come here. You don't need a license. You don't need passport. You don't need anything. Just walk through. And Michael goes, wow, they know you're here. I said, yes, well, we happen to grow up together. Because from age 88, from the 1988 until 1994, 5, 6, I was going back and forth quite a bit. And we go to the site. And we look at the site, and then it was by Soufriere, so then we go to Soufriere, and we get there, and of course, by the almond tree, I see the fishmonger.
Oh, no way. Still happy as can be.
Still happy as can be, smiling, says to me, Kobi, you got fat. I was 210, 215 pounds back then. So, yeah. And that was it. So he was right. He was still happy. We had the snapper. And it was interesting. Why? Because life is a circle, right? And the evolution of the seasons, which here in Florida we don't have too many, but in other locations we do, it makes you a better and stronger person. And me sitting here with you, giving you just a little bit of light of where I came from and where I am and who knows where I'll end up to be, you have an opportunity as an individual to get out, especially today. Put down the screens. I'm not saying don't use them. Use them. Have control. Eat healthy and natural food rather than anything that is prefabricated, pre-made. And try to drink more water and less soda and stay away from alcohol and drugs. And try to be good to yourself so that you can live a good quality of life, not only for yourself, but for the people surrounding you. And then what happens is that you become a better person, not mentally, but also physically and emotionally you become more stable. Because as you go through life, there are trials and tribulations. Some are easy and some are not. And as you go through those trials and tribulations of life, it will make you a better person coming out on the other side. And as a young individual, whatever you think is a hardship for you today, it's going to make you better and more competitive and stronger and more thoughtful and more sensitive and more comprehensive in the future. That's really what I have seen in my life.
Thank you so much.
You're
I
welcome.
mean, this has been, selfishly, I love having you here. I'm incredibly inspired. I'm going to listen to this, more and more because there's a lot here. There's a lot of substance. And with that said, I hope that you live until 102.
Thank you.
You said that architecture is kind of a personal journey, but, as we're closing out here,
Yeah.
I am curious, about kind of like, this family endeavor, number one. Secondly, some of the incredible things that you've built, including, nonprofit facilities. So, in the most humble way, what is the legacy that you would like to leave behind?
Look, I think that you hit the nail on the head. Overtown Youth Center in Overtown, and when you study the history of Overtown and how it came about and the rich history that's there. I was just at Red Rooster, right? I went to Red Rooster. I come out the front door, and I'm standing in the front there waiting for some people to come out, and people standing in front go, oh, look at this beautiful building across the street. It's the Lyric Plaza. The Lyric Theater is to the right. There's a green space that we created, and then we created Lyric Plaza, which is a collection of buildings. And people are saying, oh, I wonder how much it is to buy a condo here, right? But it's not a condo. We designed it 15, 20 years ago, and it's affordable housing. Affordable housing in a way that is subsidized by the state. It is not workforce housing. It is affordable housing. And that kind of standing outside, they don't know me, I don't know them, makes you feel good because they look at it and say, oh, it's nice. It feels good. It's like I'm sitting in a restaurant and somebody was talking about the Grand Venetian. They like the Grand Venetian, which we did years and decades ago. Or they like a building that we did in North Bay Village, right? Because they're talking about how they like where they live. Oh, I bought it for this, but now I can sell for more. And it's such a great value. I'm on the Venetian Causeway. And they have all these amenities that they're talking about. And I'm not talking about the pool. I'm talking about the bay, the marina, the Standard Hotel down the street, Sunset Harbor, about the urban fabric, the urban fabric being natural and built. And I think that gives you the pleasure because at the end of the day, it's just a period of time. People don't know. They know some architects' names, but you don't know about all the architects who built all the beautiful cities. And you can study history and you can study architecture, which I have, and I have some certain knowledge. But the majority of the population, they walk by, they drive by, and they don't know what the history of those buildings are. If more people study a little bit, not too much, about the history of that, they will become more stronger, more knowledgeable, more cultured. If you study the history of how Alonzo and his wife created the Overtown Youth Center. Where did it come from? Oh, it's to create a place for people to come and run and hide away and be protected. Oh, at the same time, they can be educated. Oh, at the same time, we can teach them how to be part of the working community. They can learn how to be hotel managers and front desk. Well, that's what I did, right? And it ties it all together.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
All right. I love that. The full circle once again.
Yes.
Kobi Karp. Thank you so much.
Anytime, Jonathan. Give Irie a big hug for me. I love
Of course.
him. And whatever I can do to help you, it's my pleasure. Always here for you guys.
Thank you so much. We have one last thing
Yes.
as we're finalizing this episode of Hearts and Stars podcast. We have this Donate or Dare wheel
Yes.
over here.
Yes.
And you have many skills, but I'd like to put you to the test and see how you spin.
All right.
Here we go.
Just turn it.
Yep, go for it.
That's pretty good. There you go.
Yeah, I think it's greased up. It's still going. Okay,
Donate.
we have a donate.
Okay.
Now, typically, Kobi, I would say maybe like an investment, a financial investment would be ideal, but coincidentally,
Yes.
We are launching Design Studios,
Okay.
which is a program. As the Little Lighthouse Foundation does, we have Big Club at Big Brothers Big Sisters right here on this floor. We
Yes.
teach kids fitness, professional chapter leaders teaching the kids, craft night at the Lotus House Women's Shelter, Story Hour, Chapman Partnership for the Homeless, and we have Design Studio,
Interesting.
soon to be launched at Branches in Florida City. And a team of Miami-Dade college students are going to be teaching sixth graders. So this is architecture and graphic design. And even though you have an incredibly busy schedule, you made time for,
How many students you got
we have about 12.
in that? You know, I'd
Right
love
now.
to have them over at the studio, because I think if you bring them over to me, to my studio, and they meet the architects in the office, and they see who we are and how we are, and we make a class for them there, they might enjoy it in a bit of a unique, different situation.
And this all took place because of a spin of this wheel. I love this wheel.
It's the best.
The wheels are turning.
It's better to donate than to dare. It's excellent. Thank
well,
you, Jonathan.
also, ladies and gentlemen, we have a TikTok. Toby and I did his first
Yes.
TikTok, so that
First
was a little bit
ever.
of the dare. But listen, 100%, you heard it here, people. We're going to invite some of these incredible students from
Yes.
Branches, our new partner facility, in for our new studio design program.
Yes.
And this is the hands-on approach. This is everything that you just preached
Yes.
coming to life. We're giving this opportunity to these students that wouldn't be able to come into.
I think this way they'll come to the office. They'll get to see some of the younger architects there. They came from Miami-Dade, came from other countries, other cities, and it would give them a comprehensive if they meet the men and women in the office.
Fantastic. Hands-on
Thank
learning.
You. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you so much, Kobi.
My pleasure. Looking forward.
Thank you so much for tuning into Hearts and Stars podcast. You can check out this episode on heartsandstars.com.